Well, children, sometimes it's a little harder to find a saint to talk about for a day, but that's okay. There are saints every single day of the year, including today where it's a ferial day. If you go and you look into the martyrology, you can find different saints. And today, I want to tell you about an Irish saint, a saint that you probably don't know anything about, but it was a really interesting saint. Her name was Saint Samthan, or Saint Samantha. And Saint Samantha, she was born in Ireland in the 8th century and had grown up with Christian parents and lived a very pious life with a noble family, meaning that she was educated and that she had some money in her family and some influence in the owned land. Well, as such, there was opportunity for them to rise up because she was a very beautiful young lady, and there was a local king whose name was Crichton, and he kind of fancied her and wanted to marry her one day. Well, the only problem was that secretly Samantha had promised that she would only serve God for her whole life. And so she didn't know what to do because there was a lot riding on this marriage, and she was sort of promised without her knowing it that the king would be able to marry her. And how do you say no to a king? That's kind of hard. Well, Samantha did the only thing that she felt that she could do, which was that she prayed that God made it clear exactly what he wanted from her. And so she prayed and she prayed and she prayed, and then it came time that they were getting ready for the wedding. It was the night before they were to be married, and so the king has big giant castle, so he's got a zillion rooms inside of it, so there's no problem. All the people that were coming for the wedding, they had a bunch of extra spare rooms and things. And well, that night Samantha, because the next day was the big wedding, she had a guest room somewhere else in the castle, and in the middle of the night the king was woken up, and because what he saw was this bright light from out his window, and he looked out the window and he saw this beam of light coming down from the sky, and it came right at his castle, and it shone right onto the roof of the castle right there. And he thought, what is that thing pointing at? And so he went through the hallway and he saw that the beam not only passed through, it hit the roof, but it went through the roof and lit up some of the interior. So he wanted to see what it was pointing at, and he found out that it was pointing at one specific spot in the house. And in that spot was the room of Saint Samantha, and she was laying there sleeping, all illuminated by this ray of light from the sky. And the king knew right then and there, this lady is very special. And so the next morning when she woke up, he said, called her and said to her, this is what I saw last night, and I know that that was a miracle, and I know that you must have promised yourself to God, and I won't stand in the way of that at all. Please go and serve God with all your heart, and he is your true spouse. And so Samantha's prayers were answered. The king let her go to do exactly that, and she joined a convent in Clonsbrony, and there she was a very good nun, and eventually was made the superior of the entire convent. And when she was in charge, it was remarkable because she was so pious that she attracted all these women from around. So it went from a very small congregation of nuns to a very large congregation of nuns very quickly. But that's okay. She had plenty of wisdom and piety to spread around and to help them all out. And in fact, she ended up getting known for not only being so inspirational, but also for even miracles that she oftentimes would work. Many times the sisters would fall sick, and she would pray, and immediately they'd be healed from their sickness. When the congregation, when their convent grew so much and they had all these new people, one of the problems that comes when you get a lot of people, that's a lot of mouths to feed all of a sudden. And they were a poor convent kind of hidden away in the wilderness of Ireland, and so they didn't have very much means. all they had there at the convent was 6 cows to get milk for everybody every day. But now they had all these people. What are they going to do? The sisters thought, well, we should probably, sell off some of the things, and we should go and buy more cows, and that way we have the sufficient milk for everybody. But Saint Samantha, she says, no, don't you worry, sisters. That's not necessary. We took a vow of poverty, and so we live poor. And moreover, because of that, we have a divine spouse with us. We should trust in him. His hand guides all things. So you pray and you trust in providence, and God will make sure he takes care of us. Well, the next morning they went out to milk the cows, and lo and behold, these 6 cows made huge amounts of milk. They just wouldn't stop until they had plenty of milk for all the sisters to drink and dunk their cookies in and whatever else they were going to do for, with cream in their coffee and stuff like that. And so the sisters were completely happy with the 6 cows that they had, and they didn't need to go get any more. Another interesting miracle, Saint Samantha liked working really kind of funny miracles sometimes. The ones that she liked making people very happy with, and showing them that to love God should make them joyful and put a smile on your face at times. And so the one time she had hired a bunch of construction workers, because again, remember, they had all these new people come. They needed a whole entire new section of the convent. Well, they had a whole group of construction workers to come, and they worked really long and hard. Remember, it's like made out of stone, big rocks and everything, and these guys are lugging stones around and driving forklifts and tractors and stuff, and all day long just really wearing themselves out. And they were exhausted and very hungry. And sometimes when guys work together in a construction crew, they'll talk about what they really want, and they'll just kind of talk amongst themselves about these things. And that was what they were doing. They were there quietly talking like, oh man, what I wouldn't kill for a big, nice meal, a huge feast. I am so hungry right now. And what would really be good would be fresh bread. And there's so many of us here, we could do with 40 loaves of fresh bread. We could probably eat the entire thing. Cheese and butter and all sorts of wonderful like snacks and things to go with it, and big glasses of milk to dunk it in. And they were just daydreaming about it. And as they were talking, boom, instantly it all appeared right before their eyes. All this big feast was right there when it hadn't been there a second before. And the next day, Saint Samantha came up to the contractor, because that was the fun part. She was hiding in the corner, and she washed, because when the miracle took place, like little kids, all these big construction workers, they started giggling and laughing with joy at seeing their feast right there. And so the next day she came up with a little smile on her face, and she says, "Did God answer the prayer that you asked for yesterday?" And the monk was surprised that she even knew about it. And he said, "Yeah, this was amazing." And she said, "Don't forget, that is exactly who God is. God is always good, and he will always take care of you." And so the construction workers continued on with their work. Finally, one last miracle to tell you about, because I couldn't pass it up because it's too good of a story, is what Saint Samantha did to protect one of her sisters. Now, she always taught the sisters about virtue, being very, very virtuous and holy, and fighting against temptation, that they should avoid temptation at all costs. Well, there was a monk who had lived in a neighboring monastery for monks, that he really liked one of the sisters, and he thought, well, you know what, we should spend more time together and do things, except that was against the rules, and it was not allowed, because both of them should be living separately, and they shouldn't be worrying about each other in that way. And moreover, there's rules for the house. And so the monk, though, he got it as mind, well, nobody will know. If we sneak out at nighttime, it won't be a big deal. I'll just go over there and kind of knock on the window, and then, we'll take off for a little while. So as he made his way over to the convent, he had to cross a little stream that was out in front of the convent. And as he was crossing across, lo and behold, all of a sudden, this monster came out of the stream. It was a giant eel, and the eel bit onto the monk and held fast and wrapped himself all around the monk and squeezed really hard until the monk, being in absolute agony, didn't know what to do. He tried to run and flee, but this thing grabbed him and dragged him to the ground, and he couldn't get it off of him, and he couldn't do anything. And the only way he was finally able to liberate himself was when he went to the convent, and he, with this giant sea monster wrapped around him, and he knelt down in front of Saint Samantha, the prioress, and begged her forgiveness. And once she forgave him for trying to break the rules and trying to bring one of the nuns to break the rules too, then the eel let go of him, unwound himself, and scurried off back into the river. So while Saint Samantha always enjoyed the bringing joy of the service of God, she also took her faith very seriously and knew that to fight temptation, we must never joke around about fighting temptation, but rather fight it very strongly and immediately at all costs. May God bless you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.